I think always I said what is a pessimistic. A pessimistic is an optimistic, well-informed. And well, the facts that I discuss in this debate give later the right to me. What has been the behavior of the European Union in the crisis of the borders with Spain and Morocco? What was the behavior of Frontex? Zero. What is now that I am now an immigrant in Poland, and what is nowadays the reaction of the NATO and the European Union for protecting the lives and the territory of Poland? As we said in Spanish, cero patatero, zero kartofelek, zero potato. This is the answer of the, and at the moment, and this is the reality. Nowadays the situation is that the European Union has a German voice and a French manners. I repeat my idea about that. And also you can see nowadays in the last months we have a problem in order the institutionality of the justice in Poland and in Spain. In Spain, the tribunals are one of the most corrupt institutions in the state. It's deep to discuss about this question now, but how at the moment that the politicians has an important path in the election of the judge in Spain, what is the reaction of Brussels? Nothing. What is the reaction of a country with a different policy, in this case as Poland? All the cavalry against Poland. If you don't follow our instructions, the funds against the coronavirus will be disrupted. Well, but imagine that Brussels has right. Yes, this kind of behavior is against the Europeans, the Polish citizens, independently of the behavior of the state. All this landscape, as I describe, is nowadays, I think, that in the idea of Robert Schuman, the strategy of the states or the people who wants this kind of values, and that we can analyze. First of all, the first line of analyze is avoid inside nowadays the European institutions the construction of this super state. And the second, in my humble point of view, is to create a density of net, to develop the multilateralism. For example, I think that the ideas as the Forum of Visegrad, in the case of Poland, is a good idea. Because the goal is not the political institution thing by Schuman. The goal, the final goal, is get the idea of Europe equals Christianity, live in our countries with those values, and nowadays Brussels is the worst enemy of that. For example, in order to teach my subjects in the university every day, I read several electronic journals in Spain. The 90% of the information, practically the 100%, the 100% of the information about Poland are negative. Nowadays, the image of Poland in Europe is absolutely negative. And the 90% of the elaboration of this information is made in Brussels. You see you read the headlines and it's redaction of Brussels. And the most part of this information that is not produced in Brussels, perhaps there are Spanish journalists who are not able to understand Polish, and the information is cooked or prepare for that. This is the main problem that we have nowadays. I think that Hitler and the Panzer divisions, they did not have success in 1945. Nowadays, Germany is trying to do the same with the rest of Europe and impose ways of life that a lot of people in Europe doesn't like. In order, coming back to my point, is how avoid the construction of this super state inside the institutions. First of all, in the European Parliament, proportionality. I don't know why, for example, Malta or Belgium has the representation in the Parliament that have nowadays. I don't know. I don't understand. If all the people in Europe, all the individuals are citizens of the European Union, the representation in the European Parliament must be directly in proportion with the population, and that's all, and no more discussion. And if the Maltese, there are less than 1 million, is the problem of the Maltese. They can develop policies in order to grow the population. But for me, it's very important. Secondly, limitate the European legislation to the points of the European legislation, no more. For example, the European Parliament has not any competence in order to judge the laws in Poland, because the principle must be clear. And also, when you see some conference or books about the European Union, this is the principle, this is the most important fact. The Polish law is European law in the territory of Poland, and the Spanish law is European law in the territory of Spain. Instead, to try to control the puppets, as Poland or Spain or Portugal, perhaps one line of that is develop, for example, the cooperation between this justice. Nowadays, it's a shame for Europe that Carles Puigdemont, this rebel, is member of the European Parliament, and Spain required to Belgium the extradition of Puigdemont, and nowadays Puigdemont is in the city of Brussels walking around. And it's not only the case of the Catalan independentists. Belgium protect terrorists of the base movement ETA, and it is not only a declaration of independence. There are killers, there are blood, and it's a shame nowadays that the capital of Europe is in Brussels. Brussels nowadays is a shelter of terrorists, like the base terrorists, or remember the attacks in Charlie Hebdo or Bataclan in Paris. What was the base of the terrorists? The city of Brussels. And this is a shame. Another question. I want to develop the question because in the last months we have two hybrid wars, one of them in Poland and one of them in the borders, in the African borders of Spain. Always I said, what is nowadays the role of the NATO? Nothing. The NATO nowadays is only a band of gangsters in order to bomb Belgrade, in order to kill civilians in Afghanistan and in Iraq. That's all. That's all. At the moment that the people of Poland and the people of Ceuta and Melilla need the protection of the NATO, the result is zero. And well, one of the points that we can develop in Europe is, for example, that I propose in one of the debates, the creation of an European army, but an European army limited of the protection of the borders, the airspace and the borders, and, for example, develop a force de frappe, a common nuclear strike force, but only for the self-defense. No adventures in Libya for killing Gaddafi, no adventures in Iraq or in Afghanistan, or also in Bosnia-Herzegovina, because the result of the war was finally the first military action of the NATO, the attack and the bombing of a city like Beograd. In the principles of international law, the right to the self-defense, I think that Europe can create a common army, only but limited only to the defense of the borders. The airspace, for example, create a net of air defense that perhaps Poland needs a receive of troops and also a strategic force, limited only of the defense of the lands and the European waters. At the moment, for example, that the French wants to do a military adventure in Africa, or the French Americans need to bomb Libya, they can do that, but with their forces. Okay? For example, for me, is a field for developing this kind of relationship. Poland, Spain, Italy, France can do his armed forces, but we have a common army in order to be the structure of a common system of defense. Like in a building of apartments, every neighbor is the owner of his apartment, but finally we can agree a common defense of the access to this building. This is my idea, and I think it's my time. And thank you very much for.
Thank you very much, Professor De La Fuente, that you just highlighted a few concrete topics. And I would like to just clarify that, we built that platform, Schuman Debate on Renewing the European Union, to stop the direction in the superstate. And we have, speakers from many countries, right? And as well, we noticed that, basically in Spain, they are the people who are in favor of a superstate, but there are many people who are against. The same is in Germany. They are in they are in favor, so some political leaders, but there are many which are against. So, and today we have, for instance, many speakers who are in favor of to stop the superstate. Therefore,
yes, Professor Christian. When I talk of Germany, I don't talk about the Germans. I talk about the behavior of the German government. That's all.
Yeah, of course, Professor De La Fuente. This is my understanding of your speech. It's
the same when I am Catholic and I'm able to listen the anti-Catholic discuss. This is a free forum, and my opinion is free. If the Germans doesn't like to listen to me, it's their problem. It's not mine. No. I want just clarify. Of course, I understood that everybody understood you properly, but everybody who will, listen in the internet, so that they know that we are not, for instance, against the citizens of the France or citizens of the Germany. We are just Belgium.
Or Belgium, or Poland, or Russia, or every country we can mention in the same way. But we are against about these leaders who are just trying, in each country, who are just trying to bring us in the shoes of a superstate. So,
for example, in Spain, the government of Spain has a pro-German policy. And I'm Spanish, and I can support the critics again nowadays the behavior of the Spanish government. One thing is the Spanish government, another thing is the population of Spain.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy we just, make this as well additional explanation. And, the additional thing I would like to add that our debate is as well going to challenge, to support this actions towards creating a Schuman fraction at the European Parliament. So to that Schuman, currently we had in Warsaw some summit. We had before in April in Hungary, in Budapest, and as well many, parties, many political leaders from all over the Europe joined that initiative. And I am very happy to see that. And we like to invite more and more of them because we have around the Europe many, so-called the people of a goodwill, thinking about the politicians who are in favor of the Schuman's Europe. And therefore we need to build that coalition. So our debate is going to support that direction. And we try to find the arguments how to do. As an Institute of Schuman Thought and every expert and professors I met and politicians, think that this